You and I are renegades to a certain extent, maybe in different areas, but we both have that aspect to our nature. So, when should somebody ignore a best practice?
I don't know if I've ever followed best practices. So, like, I know you're laughing at me. If it brushes against ethics or morality and the best practice will keep that straight, you have to follow the best practice, period. There should never be a question. If you're one of those people that wants to leave a mark in a good way, it's not because it's a selfish want to leave a mark. It's because you're looking at the lump and you know you can make it a square, and the square is what people really need to be more effective and feel better about what they're doing.
I think it's really important for people to choose work environments that align with their level of renegade that's inside them. Hey everyone, welcome back to our next episode of Leadership and Motivation Unleashed. We are looking forward to having a great conversation today. As you know, we've been tackling a lot of random topics. Sometimes they're questions that people ask us. Sometimes they're things that Patrick and I have been noodling over the course of the week. Sometimes it's things that we're inspired by, hearing from other people, reading in the news. But most of the time, we try and pick things that we think will be interesting and of note to more of you. So we're going to tackle that next one. And as we said last time, please, if you have thoughts that you'd like to share, or if you have insights that maybe we missed, please tell us. Reach out to any of us, comment on any of our posts, and we'd love to feature your thought leadership on our channels. So Patrick, are you ready for the question of the day?
I am.
Okay, so one thing people love to talk about in corporate America is best practices. Best practices. I've heard some people refer to them as leading practices, which I kind of like better because maybe it's not best, or maybe it used to be best 25 years ago and it's not best anymore. Sometimes there's all kinds of other funny terms, SOPs, standard operating procedures, but essentially we are given something to say, this is the way to do it. And it's kind of codified as the law of the land. Now, you and I are renegades to a certain extent, maybe in
Uh-huh.
different areas, but we
Uh-huh.
both have that aspect to our nature.
Uh-huh.
So, when should somebody ignore a best practice?
Um, boy. Well, let me start by saying this. If it brushes against ethics or morality and the best practice will keep that straight, you have to follow the best practice, period. Like, there should never be a question. Those type of cutting of corners, which doesn't always have a good connotation with cutting corners, but or trying a different unique way where you could potentially put yourself or the organization you're responsible for or the company you work for or the people that you're with in harm's way. Don't do it. Let's put that over here. So everyone hear me say that, like, and everyone should know what those are. Like that, you don't even need examples of that. It's common sense. Now, let's flip over here to where it isn't going to get you in trouble or, ethics or whatever. I don't know if I've ever followed best practices. So, like, I know you're laughing at me because you know that to be true. And I don't renegade or go maverick because I think it's cool. I think maybe it's because of where I came from. Like, I don't man, even in the military, think about it. Like, the rules in the military are so intense and they're there for a reason. And a lot of them keep you alive, by the way. Like, literally keep you alive. The safety features, the briefings, my God, the endless dialoguing about how something's gonna work. It's for a reason, but even the units I served in, I had commanders that would just they were habitual line steppers. If they saw something illogical or just didn't fit the scenario, they would just make up the rules as they went, and some doctrine got changed because of the people I worked for and what they ended up doing. Like, here's an example. When we deployed to the Middle East, I was 19, I had a big shot as a boss, so I was exposed to a lot of things. I wasn't call it a traditional soldier, at all, and she didn't have a lot of the gear that you would have thought you'd have going to the desert to fight. Like, we came out of Colorado, we were most of our training was about fighting Russians, not Iraqis, and that's exactly what happened. And there wasn't a lot of things built or written or best practices about how you get a unit trained to fight in the Fulda Gap or wherever else the different units were trained to fight into Saudi Arabia with orders to go north. Right down to the fact that our uniforms were not summer uniforms. Our uniforms were not desert friendly, and it was hot as hell. It's Saudi Arabia. It's hot. And she would make snap decisions on acquiring items, uniform rule changes. Maybe to the listeners who never served, like, you don't mess with the uniform. The uniform is what it is. You shave every day, even if you haven't showered in 3 weeks. Like, there's just things you do no matter what the conditions, but she either loosened some things or tightened some things as we went. And for the 10 months we were together there, she wrote a lot of her own doctrine. And then when I was flying, there's a lot of decisions you're making up front while you're hurtling through space in an aircraft. It doesn't matter how big the aircraft is, aerodynamics are the same. You're moving at high rates of speed off the ground in a tin can. You're making decisions on the fly. So by the time I got to corporate America, I just looked at it like an airplane. Like I didn't know what rules were. I didn't know what best practices were. I had no real training. I mean, I've told Rachel this, and for the listeners, my first job was in HR. And I was the guy that would go with the HR partner. When someone got fired, I'd help them pack their stuff and walk them to the car. That was my job, my first job. I don't even know what I called it, the Turk. I was the Turk. I don't even know what ACS called it, but that's what I did. And then when I got into Moneymaker, which was the ATM and debit arm of the company, which was like 4 months later, I wasn't cut for HR. They put me in a payments company or payments division. And they said, hey, when banks run low on debit cards, call them and order them for them. That was my training. I'm like, debit cards, and debit cards are still kind of new. I'm not aging myself, but 1997, they were out, but they weren't like mainstream like they are now. And like today's kids would never even heard of an ATM card, right? You had an ATM card and you had a debit card. And a lot of our banks and credit unions had both. So when you signed up for one of our banks or credit unions, they'd get, you want an ATM card, you want a debit card? There wasn't just one. The debit card became both in the future, but back then it was both. So I would call banks. No one taught me how to talk to a banker. No one taught me what to say. The price sheet was like not right, and it was handwritten by the person who did the job before me. So I just made it up as I went. So then every job after that, I just kind of made it up as I went. Now, not everyone has that fortune. Not My first job was at a very entrepreneurial company, Affiliate Computer Services. Darwin Deason only cared about growing. He didn't care about rules at all. So be smart and figure it out. That was the training in every job we hired for. Now, I know people today that like go to work for Bear Stearns out of college. Bear Stearns is not going to let you run around like Darwin Deason let you run around and figure stuff out in the fly. They probably give you a manual that thick. You worked at AT&T and Stryker. Like, I'm sure there, when someone walks in net new to the world, here's your best practices, here's your processes, here's your policies. So I'm a product of my past. Even in this job now, I don't have best practices of how to run this place. I mean, the place needs a lot of extra attention and different kind of focus and different kind of behaviors to have stabilized, and now we're growing. Like, I like being around innovative people, and I don't mean creating the new iPhone. I mean, hey, here's a pile. There's no documentation of how the pile works, but we know the pile needs to be a square, not a lump. And I like finding people that can look at that lump and say, I can make that a square. How are you going to do that? Well, I don't know yet. I'm going to figure it out. Man, I love people like that. If you can find organizations that let you do that, and the podcast we recorded for this one about being courageous to speak up or not tolerating whatever's happening to you, you also don't have to tolerate the rule book. Dangerous thing to say, because look, if you're a law enforcement officer listening to this, and we do have a few of those listening, there's a lot of rules for you. I got it. But I'm sure there's some social situations that you're in out on the road or in the world operating with the public that there is no rule book for, and you're innovating on the fly. Innovation just isn't a technology thing. It's how you treat people. It's how you de-escalate situations. It's or potentially, sadly, have to escalate situations. Sometimes the rule books are just there to give you a guide, but when the fur starts flying, you got to figure out how to go. So when I got to US Bank and there were more rules than I had hair, and I used to have hair back then, like I still found my own way because some of the rules were not updated. Like so many businesses have all these rules and best practices and processes and policies and whatever you want to say. Well, those best practices maybe worked for Johnny because they were built for Johnny's talent level. I'm not saying Johnny was bad or good. I'm just saying they had a style, they had a way, best practice. Well, Sarah comes in and Sarah's like, I think I can do it this way. Well, then do it. I call it the afraid of your own shadow approach. Don't be. We're on Earth for such a short amount of time. And if you're blessed enough to hit your 50s and 60s and 70s and you're still operating somewhere, whether volunteering or you're getting paid by a company or whatever you're doing in life, man, figure things out and make it your own. I love kind of putting my own stamp on things. You know, I had dinner with some friends from a prior company that are still operating in our space. And when I'm in New York and I have a night, it's maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I try to meet with them because they live there. You know, I'm super interested in how they're doing, what they're doing. Like I track people. Like there's like Rachel's screwed. Like she's gonna know me forever. Like if this place ever stops and we go our different ways, I'm gonna check in. I'm gonna send her Hanukkah notes. Like I do that with people. I talk to people I haven't worked with in 20 years, but I liked them and they taught me things and I enjoyed being around them. But, you know, at this dinner, it came up like my style's a little crazy. I didn't say that. Somebody at the table said that. And, you know, it didn't hurt my feelings at the time, but, you know, on the drive back that night, I'm like and we were all laughing. It was fine. There was no untowardness at all. It's me. Like, people are just used to saying whatever, and I'm fine with it. I promise everybody I am. But I was thinking on the way back, "But what did crazy mean?" Like and then there was a follow-on comment from someone else in the table, like, "People don't understand the crazy." And I think crazy is the wrong word, sometimes an inappropriate word, like, I'm not crazy, like, I don't need to be in a straitjacket somewhere. I think what they meant and it hit me the next morning when I woke up, and I had a meeting with Rachel the next morning, I was still processing it on the way to driving to where she was for this art when we sat down. I think crazy means different, unexpected, like, there's an unwritten rule book of what senior leaders should act like, and I don't even know how to read it. It's almost like it's in Arabic and goes right to left, and I'm only trained in English and I read left to right. Like, I can't foresee it because my motivation is to go really fast. Now, I understand that speed kills. I got it. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career going too fast and speaking before I'm thinking or doing before I think it through. Got it. I'm clear. I'm not professing to people that you just willy-nilly do things. But if you're one of those people that wants to leave a mark in a good way, it's not because it's a selfish wanna leave a mark. It's because you're looking at the lump and you know you can make it a square, and the square is what people really need to be more effective and feel better about what they're doing. Man, just figure out how to make it a square. Don't follow any rules. So it's a lot of dialogue to say, we all have different backgrounds. I understand mine's a little unique because of my time in uniform and flying airplanes and ACS for sure was a really unique place to start one's career for a variety of reasons. I got it. But those are for me. Everyone has their version of the uniform and flying and ACS. And it doesn't have to be wild like that or storybook or whatever people think when they hear those terms or those types of jobs I had. You have your own version of greatness that you've experienced in your past. And if you feel the need to like put your own stamp on it, man, I implore people to do that. That's why I love about Checkout. Like, I don't tell Rachel a thing to do. I mean, she has, like, these high-level guidelines from me as I wanna do these 3 things, or I'd love to see this happen, or, "Man, imagine if we could do this with that." I don't tell her how to do this with that. The other people that work with her, I don't tell them how to do anything. I just say, "Look, wouldn't this be nice to take this lump and make it a square?" And people are like, "Yeah. How do you want me to do it?" I'm like, "I don't know, figure it out." That's very liberating. Like, I'm not saying figure it out because 'cause I'm lazy. I'm I'm saying it because the people that we've attracted here are big thinkers, and they can figure things out. Every company has a version of that. If you're oppressed by rules or best practices or a box checking boss, you can politely find a way to push on those boundaries as long as you're not doing anything unethical or immoral, and it's for the betterment of the customers and your coworkers or whoever it is you're working with. If it's for the betterment and mad you tried to make something better, then you're in the wrong place. And that's what I'll say about that.
So many interesting things. A couple of nuggets I'll respond to, and then I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
So, the first thing is I'm really happy you started out by reminding everyone that some best practices are actually really, really important. I mean, I would not want to drive over a bridge if the architect did not follow best practices. Uh, right? So sometimes best practices are actually a way to organize chaos and create structure and
Don't
be more
don't smoke
efficient.
a cigarette while you're putting gas in your car.
Yeah, I actually don't do either of those things ever, so there's no worry about
I
that.
would use the example of using common sense.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, but, the other thing I think about is, I mentioned earlier that you and I both have a little bit of a renegade in us,
Mhm.
but for some people with different personality types and different character traits, they actually find best practices really comforting and
Mm.
reassuring,
Mhm.
and it can be like, "Oh, okay, this is my to-do list. This is my checklist. This is what's expected of me." And it settles down some of the uncertainty, some of the anxiety. Maybe it's a perfectionism. I don't know what it is. It's a lot of things, but I think it could be really reassuring to people. And that's why I think it's really important for people to choose work environments that align with their level of renegade that's inside them. And before, because Checkall is such an innovative environment, because we want people to really stretch the parameters of their imagination, obviously within the framework of what's required to keep our customers, secure and stable and happy and everything. We talk to people about that when we interview them, and we say, we try and get a sense of how they've operated, what kind of decisions, they've had to make. And I remember there was this one time where we hired someone and she had always worked in really organized, structured, perfectly dotted and crossed environments. And the role that she was coming into was not that way. And we really needed somebody who can come in and do a lot of organization. And we told her, hey, there's really not a lot of documentation. We need you to create the process and the systems. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I can totally handle that." And it actually was not enjoyable for her. It was really, really hard. She didn't know that because she had never done that before, right? And we ended up separating ways on a very positive note, but it wasn't fun for her because the idea of wrangling all of the chaos was excruciating for her personality. Now, if you would put me in a job where everything was like perfectly lined up and I had to just follow instructions, it would be excruciating for me, right? So I think it's really important for companies to understand where they are, for individuals, whether they're leaders or individual contributors, to be able to understand what their tolerance for perfection and for process looks like, and to consider that as they choose which roles, which career paths to pursue, which jobs to take, which companies to work for, which managers, right, to work with, because that could really make or break your overall happiness level
Yeah.
in life, right? No, it's a real thing.
I'm thinking about Lisa, my wife, like, she loves Legos.
Yes, you
Loves
told me.
and she loves following every direction on every page. And I watch her do them, and it's like some of it's therapeutic, some of it's she just likes doing it, like a lot of people do. Like, Legos has really turned into a thing, it's not a kid's toy anymore.
Yeah,
Um, and I watch her do it, and I'm like, I could not do that.
yeah.
And she
I
makes
couldn't either.
10, 12,000 piece. Like, she did the Colosseum from Rome, was 11,500 pieces. I'm like,
Wow.
I just wanna, like, like, zip them all together at once, but my if I did that, my Colosseum would turn out like the Eiffel Tower, not the Colosseum. Like, her
Right.
Colosseum turned out perfect because she followed the process, and we get along fantastically. I'm very, shoot from the hip, she's very, aim first.
Mhm.
Like, aim and then shoot, and it takes all kinds to make the rolls go around, and she was very successful. She had a
Yeah.
very successful career. She started her own business for 10 years, did that, very successful at that. awesome. Customers loved her because her attention to detail was so solid. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about cutting corners. Like, you can have attention to detail and be disciplined in the approach and not be a box checker. Like, you can still be fleet of foot and be happy doing the work.
Yes.
Being a pure corner cutter, that would not make her happy, and she and I
Yeah.
worked together for a while. She couldn't but the story is very famous, but she couldn't stand being my coworker because before we were a thing, we were not a thing. She wanted me to
Right.
disappear, like, completely disappear. Like, she was not a fan, and, one of the reasons was I just went too fast and I didn't think things through, and she just didn't think
Yeah.
that was appropriate. And, of course, now we're in our 25th year of marriage, so
Oh,
it worked out, but it takes all kinds to stir the pot. Not everybody needs to be the renegade, and like Rachel said,
agree.
your version of that is okay. It's
Yes.
so okay. Just don't just don't do it because someone else told you to do it or because it's the way it was always done.
Agree. And that's why the other thing I think about when it comes to best practice and, when should we ignore it? When should we rewrite them? When should we refresh them? And the answer is it depends, right? If the best practices are working and everyone is happy and you're getting things done and there's no, I don't know, roadblocks or anything like that, then there's no reason to go and blow up the rule book. It's working. Your products are working, your company's making money, people are collaborating. But what happens when they're not working? Now, again, it doesn't mean that it's only because of the rules, right? But what I have done throughout my career, and I do this, I always challenge assumptions. Like, I don't believe that just because someone said something is something, that means it always has to be that way. Now, I've learned as I've gotten more mature to ask about why. Oh, I'm so curious. Can you share why that was done? Or why is this a best practice? Or why did we decide to do it that way? Right? Because it's important to understand where it came from. But then if it's not working, very often I'll hear, oh, legal said so. Or, oh, no, we can't do it the other way. We can. And I'll say, oh, when was the last time we asked? Oh, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. Well, what has changed since then? Is the world that we live in and that we operate in the same as it was then? Well, I don't know. Well, let's think. What were the variables that changed? So it may be that you go back to that same lawyer or that same compliance person or that same executive and said, hey, 12 years ago, we've set this as best practice because the world looked this way, customers wanted this, or software worked that way. And then, and it was fine for a while. Now it's not serving us well. Here's what has changed. We believe there's room to still accomplish that same goal in the same way, but by adjusting our best practice. What do you think if we refresh it that way? Most times, people are like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I guess." But not everyone thinks that way. Now, again, sometimes when I do that, it could be really annoying to people who are just like, "Well, follow the rules. Like, why are you trying to mess this up, like, and create more work for people? Like, this is the way we've always done it." And if it's fine, if everything's working, it's okay. But if it's not fine and if it's causing pain or there isn't success, then I think that's an opportunity. I'll give you a good example. I think I've mentioned this example on our podcast before, but with a different context. I once worked at this company and I was helping them create a strategic recruiting plan for an area of hiring that was really challenging. So this department needed people with a really unique blend of financial analysis and software development skills because they needed to essentially do some really technical things to create these dashboards and analytics, but they also needed the finance brain to understand what it was that they were analyzing. And it was really hard to find people who were willing to do really tactical work at the price point they were willing to pay that had significant expertise in both of those areas. And they were like, "We just can't find people who are equally good in both areas, and we can't, and we can't, and we can't." And I said, "Well, are you sure you really need the same level of expertise in both areas?" And the senior leader was like, "Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, this has been the secret to our team's success, and this is why we're sought after," and on and on and on. And I said, "Would you be open to choosing a sample of 5 or 6" because that team had, like, I don't know, 50 or 60 people doing that same job. I said, "Can we choose a sample of, like, 5 or 6 people who do this job today? And would you mind if I asked them a couple of questions?" And he looked at me like, "Why? Like, I'm the boss. I know what we need on this team. Why would you ask people who are doing the job?" I said, "'Cause choose people that you consider successful, people that have good performance ratings, people whose work product, is satisfactory." I said, "The questions I'm gonna ask them is, what are some of the skills that you use in your day-to-day job?" Right? Looking at this job description that we've been publishing, which of these things do you absolutely need in order to be successful? And he's like, yeah, sure. But I'm telling you, they're going to all tell you that all these things are required. So I had my team talk to 5 or 6 people. And what they came back with was, oh, yeah, actually, we don't do that anymore. I said, what do you mean? Yeah, we don't do the technology part anymore. I said, what? Yeah, we have our technology team and this other part of the company, they came up with this like shortcut or this report or this automation thing. So they do it for us. We don't have to build them anymore. So all we need is the finance part. And I was like, seriously? And I'm like, does anyone know that? They're like, "Oh, yeah." Like, I don't know, it's just something that was around. And I think it was probably something that seemed to be just like an administrative something, and it probably wasn't important enough for the senior executive on the team, but they weren't paying attention, and so they were going out burning calories trying to find people that had skills that were not even necessary. So what I did was I challenged the assumption that this was a best practice for success in this role when that wasn't even true. So now, if they never had challenges filling these roles, then we wouldn't have had to do that because it'd be like, okay, fine. So we were hiring people with extra skill sets. Like, it's not bad. But when it became a problem, like we cannot fill these jobs or people want us to pay them 50,000 more dollars and our budget can't support that, I think it's really worthwhile to look at that best practice and say, is this best practice still serving us? Does it need to be refreshed? What has changed in our environment since that was published?
It's getting harder and harder to make the time to do that. There's gonna be whole careers spawning the next 36 to 72 months with people just killing best practices. Because as AI rises, as talents change, as the education system pivots away from teaching people to be a lawyer. Rachel's husband's a lawyer. He'll be around for a minute, but, like, AI is gonna do a lot of this junior legal work, and best practices of a 3rd year law person at, you know, Morty Book's law firm, it's gonna be different.
Yeah.
And as AI continues to creep in, there'll be less and less people around to circle back to update things. Seriously, like, I remember when the technical writers started getting walked out in the late '90s because of the dot-com crisis, and we never really replaced them anywhere I worked. So who's writing all of this down or typing? Who's typing all of this stuff up so we can adjust and track it? And there's companies out there. We're buddies with a CEO of a company called Confidence that is trying to do this, and people are gobbling it up. And I won't speak any more about it because he's got his own business plan and things he deals with his customers. But even then, those customers need to keep following up with it. Just because the AI told you, here's your processes, you have to keep reviewing because your technology is changing so quickly. I'm telling you, there's going to be people are going to make a lot of money. I don't want to call it consulting because supposedly consultants are going to go away too, but call it a Sherpa, call it a best practice Sherpa is going to have to come into these companies and say, hey, these 17 things that you said were needed, you don't need them anymore. Here's the 3 you need now. Or maybe it's 17 for 17. It doesn't matter. Like, are you paying attention to the change around you? Because look at time. Like, my 3rd year anniversary is in a month and a half here. I can't believe it. I can't believe 5 years at Fiserv went by. I can't believe 14 years at US Bank went by. I can't believe 5 years at GenPass went by, 3 years at ACS. So, keep going. Rachel, you have the same thing. Look at your boys. I guarantee you Rachel still looks at her very strapping lads like they're 5, but they're not 5. Like, they're
They're not
men.
5.
I mean, they're grown men. And
Yes.
boom, it's gone. And so think about something mundane like processes and best practices and da da da.
Yeah.
No one's paying attention, man. So, the the renegade part of people may have to grow. If you wanna call it renegade or maverick or whatever, like, pe that's gonna be a skill set in the future that will be invaluable. Can you decide and build and execute and lead on the fly? Because there may
Yeah.
not be many best practices because the world's changed that much. You're writing them on the go.
Exactly, and 2 things that I think are needed for this and that AI cannot replace, um, one is courage. You need to have the courage to be able to say, "Actually, we've been doing it like this for 100 years. We're not. Let's see what happens." Right now, obviously, don't do that in an area that has high risk, but to have the courage to be able to say, let's have an experiment. Let's do A/B testing. Let's reach out to one of our customers and say, hey, would you be open to testing something out with us? We think it's better this way. What are your thoughts? And then the other one is discernment, or being able to
Mm,
know how to make a decision, where to practice this, where best practices are not serving you well, because it's not a good use of anyone's time or emotional energy to go and like just rip up all the rule books, right? Because again, some people find comfort in them and it does create order out of chaos in many cases. But so the discernment to know where and to be able to think about, where is something changed? Where are the reasons different? Where is this causing pain? And to be able to boldly say, we're going to test this out and we want everyone's input and we want to create an environment where people are safe to say, oh, I think we might need to bring that old best practice back. Or I think it's just a tweak. It's not an overhaul, which
mhm.
is fine too. But again, not being stuck, because if we're stuck, then what happens is the same things that have helped us be successful in the past are not the same things that will take
Yeah,
us into the future.
last piece for me that is gives some clarity maybe on a little bit of this is we just finished a company changing project that took 19 months. And Rachel has a couple of people working for her that spearheaded it the last 18 months, 19 months. There was no rule book for it. There was no best practices for it. At and there were two entities involved, us and the other entity. That other entity bit off more than it could chew, kinda, as it relates to what they're known for versus what they signed up to do for us. I think that's fair, right, Rachel? Okay. And us, Check Alt, had never done or thought of that kind of work before, like moving large pieces and processes to a digital provider. We'll say that. And I watched these people that work for Rachel do this work, and in their moments of highest frustration, my role, on occasion, not all the time, was to remind them that you're feeling this way because this has never been done before. And your mind is telling you it should work like this, but you're hanging on to yesterday. This new entity isn't going to do it like that. They have their own ideas. And it doesn't mean their ideas were right. And it doesn't mean their best practices were right, because payments businesses like ours, we're almost the embodiment of Maverick, being a Maverick. Like, these businesses are very different in the way that something new happens every minute. There's a new scenario. There's so much money moving so quickly. There's a new scenario that no one's thought of every minute. So if you aren't capable of being entrepreneurial in spirit, fast on your feet, really be comfortable with ambiguity, and to make the rules as you go, because there's no one to look to. Well, how did they do it? Well, no one's ever done it before. You better figure it out. So I think that's important too. Like, this group just lived it, and there's many businesses living it. We're not starting our AI journey. We're like, it's a 4-step process that we started in, early 24, that we're entering phase 3 of a 4-phase process. But it's the biggest phase. It's the heaviest. It's the most impactful. It's gonna come with new revenue opportunities and some efficiency savings things that can happen with our yesterday workflows. The people that are doing this work, there is no rule book for it. You guys can go out online, if the listeners go out online and just play with Claude. I got everyone playing with Claude. Rachel developed something in Claude this morning to count, uh, seashells, because shells used to be used as money, and she figured out a way to dynamically figure out what your shell is worth. Like, she's playing with it to do bigger things later. So just grab it and start messing with it. You're gonna be amazed what you learn. No one taught her how to do it. I doubt she can look up what's best practices for this. Like, she just used her brain. So, man, we are entering like a new frontier as humans with technology incorporated right next to us. It's no longer in front of us on a keyboard. If you guys can see me on screen, I'm pretending I type. It's no longer in front of us. It's next to us. So anyway, I'd get
Yeah.
curious and get super fascinated, and and be okay maybe making some mistakes along the way, because those are the best
Yeah.
lessons too, guys. And then I'll shut up. That's it for me.
Yeah, and try and have fun with it. And I would say if you're an employer, if you're a leader, figure out, create a continuum, and maybe, one side is, you know, I would call it like the rigidity to renegade continuum. If you want to get if you want to get alliterative, where are you? Are you like more towards the rigid side because you need to be, or because rigidity is working for you? Or do you need to be more of a renegade? And can you move along that continuum and signal to your employees, and especially to prospects and applicants before you hire them, and maybe even prospects and customers, where you are on that continuum so that people understand, where is there room to experiment and have a little fun and maybe come up with a better place to do it. And it's totally okay to have, hey, we're on level 2 on rigidity on this section, but we've got level 4 on renegade here because it's more of a safe space to experiment. So, again, best practices are great when they're relevant, when they're working, but there's also a lot of opportunity and innovation in refreshing those and bringing them into this new generation.
Yep. Let us know
Well,
what you
thanks
think.
for yeah, thanks for joining us. Let us know what you think. If you have any thoughts or ideas, or you disagree with us, please let us know, and we'd love to feature you.
Bye, guys.
Take care, everyone. Bye.